Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, where we're going to dive into a bunch of news pieces, the topic of the week, games I played, the videos of the week, all of that and more. But before we dive into that, first a note from our sponsor, Worldspanner Factions. This is currently available over on Kickstarter. I'll have a link to it down below, and Worldspanner Factions is a giant game with a lot of game modes. This is the spiritual successor to Duel of Ages, which has won 32 awards, including 11 of the best of all time, Game of the Year, all of that over the years. The game has 174 heroes and foes to fight off against in solo play, and team play, and head-to-head play. There's a bunch of play modes going on in this adventure game. You have the ability to create your own heroes and port them into the game. The game is going to fit into one Calyx cubby. The game is going to be all standees to keep the cost down, although they are working with a bunch of various other people who are modeling various miniatures, so you have the opportunities to print your own if you want that kind of presence on your table. Worldspanner Factions, again, Duel of Ages. Check out Duel of Ages. The game has a ton of reviews, of awards, everything given to it over the years, and Worldspanner Factions is taking all of that and putting it into this new re-implementation of the game system, maintaining the things you loved, and putting new twists and spins and tweaks onto it to improve the game over the years. So Worldspanner Factions, I'll have a link to it down below. Make sure to check that out. And with that, diving to the news, starting off with Decorum. Decorum is officially putting out a mobile app for the game. I believe it's officially going to be ready. Right now they have an email to sign up and whatnot, but if you want to play Decorum and you want more scenarios to the game, Floodgate has put out a Decorum app if you want to check that out. Over here on Command's YouTube channel, we have Blood Rage Legendary Edition announcement teaser over here. So I don't know much about this, but we have a role-playing game taking place in the Blood Rage universe, which I guess for myself is likely a good place to dive into role-playing. Tentatively, maybe. It's always an interesting conversation. Do you go with a theme that resonates with you more, or a game IP that resonates with you more, or do you go for something that's more tried and true as an actual system? I don't have the answer to that. I will play RPGs someday properly. I'll give them a full, proper chance in some way, in some form. I believe actually just today, Devin's trying to work on scheduling an Alien RPG game, which we have talked about for a while, to actually get that going. Over here we have Metal Gear Solid, more Command news over here, not really news. This is basically that their pre-order for Metal Gear Solid, I believe, closes November 8th, so if you wanted to go ahead and jump into that, this is your opportunity to go ahead and do so. It's available over on BackKit with 7 days left to go, well I guess less than that by the time you're watching this video, with a few days left to go to be able to pre-order Metal Gear Solid and get all the bonuses, all the extras and whatnot. We have IELLO Games. The IELLO Games basically announced their full press line for, the games coming out in 2024. We have King of Tokyo Origins, an entry point to the King of Tokyo universe. We have Clash of Magic Schools, which is a re-theme of the game Babel, which I played Babel a long time ago. I'm intrigued how that's going to be re-implemented with IELLO's art and production and Clash of Magic. We have Flip Circus, which is artists amaze the crowd as they move about the stage, but you have a larger goal in mind, using their special powers, which already has me intrigued, and your recollection of which artists are where on each side of the tokens to line up 3 artists of the same type. So a bit of memory going on in this game, sounds intriguing, but I'm curious. We have Guilty Houston 2015, a mystery escape room style game, and then we also have a new edition of Six Axons On the Boss, Camping Flux, Decorum app, a bunch of other things listed over here in this news flash from Casual Game Revolution. Then over on GameFound, we have Nemesis Retaliation. This is being listed for 2 reasons. One, I listed all the upcoming campaigns for November, of which I believe Nemesis Retaliation is aiming for November, and I forgot to mention that Nemesis Retaliation is going to be there, so sorry about that, but in the upcoming campaigns for November, Nemesis Retaliation should hopefully be on that list. And additionally, they put out a large update over on the page. If you want to check out the page, they put out a large update around all the campaigns, the new alien race, the miniature scaling and sculpting and all that stuff. If you want to see a ton of information, a deep dive or a deep informational dump on Nemesis Retaliation, as well as some sculpts, they have all of that over on the GameFound page. Then over here, we have Party Panda Pirates, the newest game coming from Draco Studios, I believe inspired by Mario Party. I'm curious to see how this one will work out. Their last game obviously inspired by Mario Kart. Not the last game, but one of the games inspired by Mario Kart. And we have Party Panda Pirates inspired by Mario Party, so I'm intrigued by how that one's going to play out. We have ICV2 basically talking about Ravensburger announcing their Disney Lorcana plans. This talks about when the reprints for the Edition 1 are going to be landing shortly. So they should be landing in October, which is like now-ish, so I don't know exactly when that's happening. They also announced their organized play conversations. So they started talking about the organized play around Lorcana, which is obviously a big, important part of any TCG to be able to stay alive. The organized play is a big part of keeping the reason to keep playing going. Sure, you can play games with your friends, but if you want to have more of an actual progression within the system, if you want a lifeblood around the game itself, organized play is sometimes how these games live or die on the vine. So we're going to see how that plays out with Disney Lorcana. We have Tiny Epic Cthulhu, which is like, way overdue. Tiny Epic Cthulhu has been called for a long time for good reason, because in the Tiny Epic series, it was bound to have Cthulhu at some point. Cthulhu is almost a mandatory game theme that's applied to most board games, so seeing it applied here is overdue, less so than a surprise. And then lastly in news over here, we have a great article from Level 99 that they're not doing ads for Bullet. Okay, they're going to be running a Bullet universe over here, and they chose not to do any ads. Instead, they're going to be putting that money towards more artists, towards paying artists to draw characters in the game, be a part of this only kind of sub-advertising region. They talk about the fact that advertising, typical Google ads, Facebook ads, all that stuff is effective. It is effective, it is cheap, it is easy to do. They are aware of that, and they're still trying this out instead because they want to direct that extra money towards the industry itself, even if it's slightly less effective in terms of the return on ad spend. But I think it's a noble goal, a noble effort, and I'm happy to see it being done, and that's part of why I'm talking about it here, because I want to promote it and incentivize these kinds of things as much as possible. But also the reality is, to an extent, that these advertising systems, Facebook ads, Google ads, all those kinds of things, they work for a reason. They are low cost, and they are effective at getting your game in front of as many eyes as possible, even if you are unfortunately feeding the evil beast that, I don't know if I want to call it evil beast, but the unintentionally giant behemoth of a corporation that may or may not have your best interests at heart. I hesitate to call large companies evil, but I can certainly acknowledge that they are not one of us, so to speak. But that is going to be everything we have in the news category. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the topic of the week. And the topic of the week is sad, it's unfortunate, but it's basically Matthew Perry passing away. Matthew Perry, famous for Friends, if you have missed that. Matthew Perry passed away this past week. If you've watched Chandler on Friends 7,000 times like I have, then he is a big part of your life. And I don't know why this is the topic of the week. I have no direction of where this is going, past the fact that celebrities die all the time. As of filming this video, there's no official report as to what or why. Matthew Perry has had a history with various substance abuses. Nothing was found at the scene. He unfortunately drowned in his hot tub, and that's not great, but nothing was found at the scene. They're still doing toxicology reports, so we don't know the source or the reason why yet. But celebrities die all the time. They're people. People die all the time. Celebrities are going to pass away. And we'll always be hit by different ones in different ways. I remember Snape was one that hit me. Snape, well, not Snape, obviously, but what's his name? Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman was one that hit me. There haven't been a ton. There have not been a ton that have really impacted me. I find to a large extent celebrities are celebrities. They are separate. They are distant. They are people, but they're not people that I know. They played a character on a movie or a TV show that once upon a time. So sure, there's some degree of connection, but more often than not, when a celebrity passes away, I'm sad for it, but it doesn't necessarily personally affect me. I don't find my day is impacted. I don't find myself emotionally moved past being the fact that I'm sad for someone else's death. Matthew Perry's death does bother me more. Not necessarily the most for many. Again, there have been celebrities over the years who have certainly affected me. There have been celebrities who have had an impact on my life more so than playing a casual character on TV. But Matthew Perry's death definitely did emotionally affect me. I think a big part of it is his age. He is younger, and that does mean that there's more of a sense of, instead of that sense of like, oh, he lived a good life and he lived a long life, there's a sense of like, too soon, too young. And it's always too soon. It's always too young. It doesn't matter whether you die at 30, it doesn't matter whether you die at 70, it's always too soon. But there are perceptions around what is too soon. And I think, like, for me at least, if you're in your like mid-60s or older, it feels like you at least got a decent shot of things. Still too soon, still too young, but I have less of a inherently attached sadness. I think 50s is a hard number. 50s really feels like no one should be dying in their 50s. People obviously do, but it feels like no one should be dying in their 50s. And then combine that with the fact that the way he touched my life was with comedy. I find usually that has a greater impact on the emotional feeling I get from someone. Because you can play an actor all you want. And Alan Rickman's a good example here too. Alan Rickman did affect me, but like part of it is because Alan Rickman's played a variety of roles. Roles that have touched my heart in different ways because of who he played, how he played them. It's not just Snape. I said Snape, initially because like one of the things I think of when I think of him. But he has played in a ton of things with a large degree of humor, a large degree of his catalog that he's played. From The Prince of Thieves to Love Actually to Snape. He's done a lot of different things. But Matthew Perry touched my heart as Chandler from Friends. And himself, in one interview one time, he said that he knows when he passes away, he'll be remembered most for friends. But he wishes he were remembered more for the other things he's done. And I feel bad about that. because I don't know the other things he's done. Like, I understand the sentiment. I understand the idea that you get so, you're so popular in a certain aspect of your life that that's all you are to everyone. You're no longer Matthew Perry, you're Chandler Bing, Chenandler Bong. I understand that sentiment. I feel bad that I can't honor his wishes as much because I don't know. Like, he talked about, like, the other things he's done, the other, like, charitable works or giving he's done. I just don't know those things. So I'll mention that he wanted to be remembered for other things too, while acknowledging that I don't know those things as much myself. But he, the character he played, touched my life. Friends, to this day, is one of my most popular TV shows for me ever. I just finished rewatching it for possibly the 7th or 8th time. I have watched that show a lot. It has brought a lot of laughter to my life. It has brought a lot of smiles. It has been something that I can resonate. For everything going on in life, there's a moment. The amount of times I've screamed, "Pivot! Pivot!" is like, it's been a part of my life. Every time I get a cold, I say to people, I'm in the Probableib. I'm in the Probableib. Because I have a cold right now, so I'm in the Probableib. And some of you who've watched Friends might know exactly what I'm talking about. To others, that is a singular moment of a singular episode where it's said one time in the Probableib. But to me, it's something I always say. We all get affected and touched by different things in life. We all have impacts on others, and we don't necessarily know the impacts we have on others. If you're someone like Chandler Bing, if you're someone like Matthew Perry, then you can know the impact you've had on others as being one of the most popular TV shows of all time that's been watched by millions and millions of people, that even today the rights for Friends is still hotly contested and sold around for huge price points because of how impactful on our culture it is even now. It ended in 2004. We're talking about 19 years after it ended. 19 years later, and it's still a cultural icon. Not everything can do that. Some things don't stand the test of time so well. Friends so far has. I didn't know Matthew Perry. How could I possibly? But he and Rachel and Ross and Monica and Phoebe and Chandler and Joey, they've all been a big part of my life in a way that they couldn't possibly know. I'm just one person of millions of people who benefited from their show, who found humor in the show, who still turns to that show, but now turns to that show with a degree of sadness. I'll never be able to watch an episode of Friends again without realizing that one person from that crew is gone. Celebrities die all the time. They're just people. We're all just people. Life moves on, life moves around us. The world forms and evolves and molds itself to the shape and the holes that we leave behind in it. And we don't necessarily always realize the history we leave behind. Like, it's something I thought of as someone who does YouTube videos now. It's something I've thought of, the idea that for the rest of my life, or as long as I keep doing YouTube, I'll have a constant track, an evidence trail of my life over the years, of who I am, how I've evolved, how my thoughts and feelings change, what I look like, the interactions I have with my kids. Like, there's always going to be aspects of my life that are publicly available for those who I leave behind to view one day. And it won't necessarily matter to the greater ecosystem. It won't necessarily matter to the greater world. I certainly will not have the impact that someone from Friends did. But there's still a trail. There's a degree of impact you can have on the lives of others. There's something to be said for that. And you don't know who you'll affect. You don't know how you'll affect them. You could be someone who did something kind for a stranger one time in a mall and you just helped them out. It could be the fact that you are in some way a public personality and you had an impact on others' lives. I could have brought someone into the hobby that becomes a huge part of who they are. That's such a huge thing. The entire Friends TV show has been one of the most impactful aspects of media. If I'm looking at TV and movies, likely the most impactful on my life has been Friends. And it's sad to think that a big part of that is now gone. I never read his book. I want to now. It's interesting, the people we value and the way we put them on a pedestal that forever changes their own life. There's a cost to being a public figure. There's a cost to being someone different. There's a great book I highly recommend called Growing Up Wizard. It's by Tom Felton, Draco Malfoy. Tying it back to Harry Potter again. Draco Malfoy wrote a book called Growing Up Wizard. I've read bits and snippets of it. I haven't read the whole thing yet. But it's fascinating to understand the way we build people up and the way we view them. It puts them in their own headspace and their own way that they operate. Friends is both the biggest part of Matthew Perry's life and also something that could never ever be exceeded. It would be nice to be remembered for something other than Friends. And while I respect that viewpoint, while I acknowledge that viewpoint, the area in which he touched my life was Friends. And so I wish him great peace. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know whether it was... I don't know what happened. I wish him all the peace in the world. I wish him, those who loved him, those who are close with him, whatever degree of comfort they can have. Sometimes we're so much bigger than who we actually are. And sometimes we're just another life. Another moment moving on. And the world moves on. And soon enough, we're just a memory. We're just that person who died years ago. I've had friends die. It's getting dark. I've had friends die. I've had friends pass away. And in the moment of their passing, it was shocking and it was horrific, and the people they left behind were huge gaps in their life. You fast forward 5-10 years down the road, and you forget to a certain extent that they lived. You don't forget, but they stop being a constant presence in the way you live your life. Life is too short. Life is too short. However much you enjoy this hobby, remember the people in your life too. Remember the people in your life. Life is so complicated. The reasons we live our life, the things that bring us joy, the impacts we have. Life is so complicated. It is beautiful. It is heartbreaking. It is terrible. Everything along the way is messy. So yeah, I guess my week in review is just a bit of a tribute to Matthew Perry. I've been impacted by him, and I'm grateful for him. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the games I played. Although before I do, slight correction. About 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week. 2 weeks ago, I briefly spoke about the whole Hamas, Israel, Palestine situation. I'm not doing a deep dive into that conversation right now because I think at this point I am involved enough in the cultural aspects of what's going on that I get to see all the TikToks and all the videos and I've watched a lot of content on the entire thing, both to stay as informed as I possibly can, while also being mindful of everything. I'm not gonna. This channel is not going to be a talking point around that. I have talked about it. I will always happily address any questions. If you catch me in any Q&A, nothing is ever off limits. Anything is totally fair game. But I don't want to constantly bring things up all the time. What I will say is I do want to issue a correction. I mentioned in that video 2 weeks ago that in Hamas's charter, they call for the destruction of Jews. They call for the death of Jews. And it's worth noting that I did not realize that in 2017, Hamas amended its charter. So that is a correction that I do want to call out because I did not realize that. They amended the charter. I do not, just to be very clear, I still view Hamas as a terrorist organization. I do view Palestinian civilians who are getting murdered or killed in this conflict. I view them as casualties. I don't want to get too into it. I very much view Hamas as a terrorist organization based on the actions and the behaviors therein. This does not change my overall opinion of Hamas, but it's still a factual inaccuracy, and I would always like to correct factual inaccuracies. So to that end, Hamas did amend its charter that called for the destruction of Jews in 2017. The language currently used is still not the most peaceful, but it is amended. I will include a link to an article down below. You can go ahead and reference that if you want. Past that, regarding the entire Palestinian-Israel conflict, there are very divisive sides on... They're very divisive everything on each side, and I get that, and there's no way to resolve this in a back and forth. I do think that the conversation is very nuanced. I think it's very complicated. That's not an excuse for the sense that... It's not an excuse for either side. I think that is very, very hard conversation to have, and it's not what I'm going to try to have in a back and forth YouTube video. Anyone who wants to personally engage with me, you're always welcome to. I will talk to anyone directly about it. I have certainly, on my end, I'm always open to a lot of different things. I'm open to a lot of different things. I'm open to finding out more. I have done a lot of research on both sides of the conflict of things, and And I think it's a very hard situation. And so I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the lives lost in this. I'm sorry for the innocent lives lost in this conversation, in this conflict. Yeah. With that, let's move into the week in review. The week in review, starting off with what I played. Starting off with Hadrian's Wall. I played Hadrian's Wall solo this past week on a live stream, and I want to talk about that one briefly because I don't know if you've played the Hadrian's Wall solo campaign, but it seems hard. Like, you have to get 70 points, complete the full wall section, and the bonus is get at least 20 points in each of the categories. I thought I was decent at Hadrian's Wall, but clearly not, because I am not getting any of this in terms of points. I mean, I'm getting destroyed and butchered left, right, and center. I am not getting that 70-point score at all in any way, shape, or form. So if you're someone who's playing Hadrian's Wall, I would love to get your input or feedback on how that campaign has been done for you. Playing on normal mode, not playing on easy, playing on normal mode, and see how that campaign has worked out well for you or not. I'm very intrigued by that. But I still love Hadrian's Wall. Still a great game. It's recently been put on BGA, and so I've been playing it both on BGA and in person, diving back into that game. Then we have 4 Northwood, which is always fantastic. I love 4 Northwood. I got a chance to play it several times this past week, and I always recommend that game. I think it's an excellent game. I just, yeah. If you can ever get your hands on 4 Northwood, you should do so. If you in any way enjoy solo games, if you travel at all, if you want a game to play on a plane, yes, it does fit on a tray table with a little bit of a finagling, but you can get it on a tray table. But overall, 4 Northwood is a fantastic solo trick-taking game that I cannot stop. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. I highly recommend that to anyone who can get their hands on it. We have My City Roll and Write. Managed to play, 17 games of it this past week. I played a lot of My City Roll and Write this past week. I finished an entire campaign and then started a new one of it already. That's specifically the Roll and Write version. So we're still in the middle of My Island. But My City, I've played a ton. My City Roll and Write, I'm playing a decent amount. And My Island, only 3 games in. Need more of those to go ahead and get done. But I enjoy My City Roll and Write. It's a different experience than My City, while still giving me the same fun of the experience. So I still definitely recommend it. I think it's great. That's going to be My City Roll and Write. And then lastly, a little bit of a tease here because I'm not going to get into it, but I played Blood on the Clock Tower 3 times this past week. I hope to do a review of Blood on the Clock Tower. At this point, I'm 4 plays in, and I hope to do a review, a video of it at some point. I don't know exactly when, and I don't actually have a copy, so the question is, do I just talk about it, or do I actually try to get a copy to do a full review of it? But Blood on the Clock Tower, what I will say is, my original video of Blood on the Clock Tower is my most disappointing experience of 2022, I want to say it was. I think it was 2022, maybe it was 2021. It was 2021? No, 2022. But Blood on the Clock Tower is... I was very clear on my original video that the experience was more the issue, and the game I simply had problems with. And we'll talk about it more, but I am neither a hardcore fan of Blood on the Clock Tower, nor am I incredibly anti it. I would happily play it with people who are... I would happily play Blood on the Clock Tower with people who are my friends and I want to hang out with. It would not be my go-to game to seek out. But we'll talk about that more in a dedicated video as far as the whys and hows. But I did at least give it 3 more plays, so I definitely gave it a decent shake with a better crowd and optimal group of people. And that is basically that, which brings us to the videos of the week. Videos of the week, starting off this past Saturday, we had a review for Bestiary of Sigillum. Gave that one a 4 to 5. I really enjoy what the game is doing. There are elements of it, I don't think I'm ever going to keep it for the 2-player mode, just because of the nature of why I engage in 2-player head-to-head experiences. But the solo mode is fantastic. The 2-player mode is a lot of fun. I just don't think it's going to have longevity in my collection from that side. So my goal is to continue to play through the solo content, maybe through the 2-player campaign as well, and then go through all of that, and then move on from it. But I really like Bestiary of Sigillum. Later on Saturday, we had a gameplay for Marvel X-Men. Marvel X-Men missions, well, I don't know. Okay, Marvel Dice Throne, the missions gameplay. Playing as Thor and Loki, Meg and I dove into it, taking down Claw in that gameplay. You can check it out. This was a sponsored gameplay. Please take that into account. But diving into Marvel Dice Throne missions. There's so many terms. There's Marvel Dice Throne X-Men missions. Lots of things going on there. On Sunday, we had a video of a 3.5 isn't a recommendation. This is basically trying to clear up, and it's something that will come up from time to time, but a 3.5 is my most common game rating. It's also not a recommendation. A recommendation usually starts at 4 and above. At 3.5, it is a passing grade. It's you are fun, I've enjoyed you, there are parts of me that want to return to you, but that's not a recommendation because there are so many amazing games out there. I would never recommend simply good ones. I think if you're interested in a game and I give it a 3.5, that's kind of like a, hey, you know, if you want the excuse to pick this up, here's your excuse to pick it up. Does not mean it's a great game. On Monday we did 2 back and not to back. No, that's not true. Monday we did 5 quick reasons not to back games. This is a regular series I tend to do of trying to give you reasons why you should avoid backing crowdfunding campaigns to counter all the fact that I'll constantly show you all the crowdfunding campaigns that I'm then telling you not to back. But the ultimate goal is be responsible. Don't spend money on games that you're not sure of. There are so many games tempting you, and you really have to be conservative with what you spend your money on. You don't have to be. If you have lots of money, don't be conservative at all. But I do recommend it from a sense of time, money, and space being conservative. Then, later on Monday, we have the upcoming campaigns for November. Directly after telling you not to back any campaigns, I then show you like 30 more campaigns that you might be interested in backing, and there are a bunch of things coming up in November that are worth looking at, including Nemesis Retaliation, which I forgot to talk about. To be clear, I don't know if Nemesis Retaliation is confirmed as November, but I think they've said they're going for November. Then later on Tuesday, we had a few things. We had a review for Kelp. Kelp is an asymmetric game where one player plays as a shark, one player plays as an octopus trying to escape the shark. Gave that one a 4 out of 5. I think it's a strong asymmetric game. Does a really good job. That should be launching next week. We had a review for Wild Duo. This one was a mixed one. It's 5 abstract games that I enjoyed to various degrees. I would say the one they're mostly in the 3s and 3.5 camps, but they're 5 different abstract games. Hard to really properly review it because if I'm reviewing it based on the best of the games in the series, it's a 3.5. If I'm reviewing it based on the least of the game in the series, it's a 3. They were all fine. They're all fine games. Nothing wrong with any of them, but there are better games within the genre for many of them, and some of them are actually good games that I definitely recommend a bit more. Then we have, well, recommend a bit more is hard because I just said a 3.5 is not a recommendation. It is, I think there are better games in there. Ultimately, the main compelling aspect of it is the price point for 5 different abstract games is the main reason to look at Wild Duo. If you're looking for abstract games in general, I'd recommend other abstract games over it. Then we had, lastly on Tuesday, we had a video about Level Up Retreat. Level Up Retreat is going to be happening again, February 2nd to February 4th in Woodbridge, New Jersey. We got a new location, cheaper location, better access to airports, better accommodations in general to run the event out of, and that will be February 2nd to February 4th in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Highly recommend you come join us if you are able to. It'll be a lot of fun playing a lot of games, and I'll try to get a copy of Blood on the Clock Tower. I make no guarantees, but I'll try. That's going to be Monday, Tuesday. That's going to be Tuesday. And Wednesday we had a video for a preview for the Queen's new capital. This is a preview video going up, sponsored video. Professor Meg took care of the video. This is a deck building game that's going to have you building out your kingdom as efficiently as possible while you try to achieve the goals, which are scenario dependent as you go through it. Then later on Wednesday, we had a Q&A, live Q&A, where I just, engage with all of you, talking about whatever and all the questions that usually pop up. Always fun engaging with all of you. If you missed it, by all means, show up next week. We generally try to do these Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is generally when I try to do them. And then lastly on Wednesday, we had a WarBonds preview. Hopefully we had a WarBonds preview. There may have been different things mixed up in the schedule. We had a preview for WarBonds. Again, this is a paid preview done by Meg on the channel. WarBonds is an active Kickstarter campaign, so go ahead and check that out. Then on Thursday we had a Games Leaving the Collection video for the month of November. Just going through a bunch of games leaving the collection. As always, games come in, games go out. Some games stick around, and others just get moved on and shuffled on to the next location. Very often, some of them to Level Up Retreat, others to wherever they end up going. That was Thursday. On Friday, we had a Should You Back It for Marvel Dice Throne, diving into the whole X-Men, Marvel, Dice Throne missions, whatever it is, a full Should You Back It video. There are a lot of passionate backers on that page. We'll also have a Should You Back It next week for, well, I cannot remember, for The Witcher Path of Destiny. But either way, on Friday we had a Should You Back It for Marvel Dice Throne. Then we also had a Wizards of the Grimoire preview. Not preview. This is a review. A Wizards of the Grimoire Shifting Sands review. Going over the new content in Wizards of the Grimoire. I like Wizards of the Grimoire. I talk about that more in that video. And then lastly on Friday, we had a Zombicide DCeased unboxing. Or DCeased, a Zombicide game unboxing, if you want to check that out. That was coming on Friday as well. And that we have today. Today we're going to have a few things. We're going to have, hopefully, a Ticket to Ride San Francisco and Berlin short video, just talking about the 2 small box city games. We also have The Witcher Path of Destiny, a review of The Witcher Path of Destiny. Long story short, I got a little delayed on that review because I was waiting on miniatures for the game that never showed up. And they're like, hey, could you show the miniatures in the game? And I was like, if they show up, I will. And they're not showing up. So that is a review without miniatures, but that's fine. The miniatures are just bling. But if you want to check out my thoughts and opinions on The Witcher Path of Destiny, you can check that out later today. As far as next week, we're going to have a few things going up. I'll hopefully have a video going up of why I can't stand limited pledges. You know, those like VIP pledges where it's like 15 left of 50. Oh no, wait, now there's 12 left of 60. Look at that, the numbers keep changing. I have vented about this before. I do a full video next week as to why they bother me so much more than any other thing in the crowdfunding space right now. I find, well, aside from campaigns campaign's just not delivering. That's obviously worse, but I do a full video diving into that next week. I'll also have 7 games if you like Ticket to Ride. I did a video of 7 games if you like Catan a few weeks ago. I'll be doing more of these. It won't always be 7. It'll be some random number, but there are 7 games if you like Ticket to Ride that I recommend checking out if you want to move from Ticket to Ride up to not necessarily greater and better things, but more complicated and different things that give you the same vibes as to why you like Ticket to Ride. And with that, the games on the table. As usual, these are the games I hope to dive into this week. I have Wayfarers of South Tigris, which I'm hoping to play tonight. If things go well, I'll be playing this tonight. We have Ingenious from Cosmos Games. They are reprinting Ingenious. I had this when I first got into games, and I'm excited to dive back into it. We have Halls of Hegra, a solo game that I hope to dive into this week. We have The Art Project, which is a solo or cooperative game. Well, more cooperative than solo. There is a solo mode to it, but either way, hope to dive into that as well. Already read the rules. And then we have The Hunt, which I need to read the rules for. That's a 2-player. Well, Halls of Hegra and The Hunt, I need to read the rules. The others I'm all prepped to go. But these are all the games I hope to be diving into this week. And with that, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here. And as always, I hope you have a good one.